Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of The New Standard. And the title of this week's show is It is a Pebble in My Shoe, which is a reference from Mike Tomlin in describing the issues with George Pickens and social media. As always, my partner in crime to my left. What's up, Big Neil?
It's a beautiful day in Zamunda, Lance. We are at about 40 degrees here in the Twin Cities area. It's heating up because this is one of the rare occasions in which I can wear Steelers gear outside and see the upcoming opponent's fans, of which there are far too many around where I live, and get a chance to talk a little trash. I enjoy that. It's the Packers this week, a throwback of two iconic franchises, both of which going in different directions than their legacies perhaps would indicate. You want to call it a rematch of Super Bowl 45. It is about the opposite of that in my mind. Green Bay floundering in all areas at this point in the season. Steelers are favored in this game, heading into Akron Stadium for their third consecutive home game. Usually a good sign for the home team if they are playing well, and I think we saw flashes of that over the last 2 weeks. Are they able to put it all together against a beleaguered, backed into a corner opponent? We'll see, but plenty of news and notes here coming from the Southside facility within Pittsburgh, and it really is a critical win, a critical game for the Steelers to win, considering the oddity of their remaining schedule. We're going to go over all of that and more here as we get tuned up for a big week. What week is this? 10, 9?
Week 9.
Week 9
Week.
already. God, it feels like it just started.
Yes,
Crazy how
it
these seasons
does.
fly by.
They
But
absolutely fly by as if they had wings.
yes, indeed. And wings is not the way you would describe the Steelers' offense as it continues to flounder, despite showing some signs of mediocrity here and there. They are still among the bottom 5 or 6 teams in most offensive categories. Is this a game they can break out, Lance? That's the question that I have. This is not a good football team that they're playing in any regard. Not a whole lot on paper that you should be worried about, but you throw all of that out when it comes to Steelers football. Um, Packers actually aren't a terrible defensive team. I don't know where I saw otherwise. I might have been looking at the wrong line. Watching them, they're not impressive. They are the type of team that can put together a collection of decent plays, some decent football, but they'll melt down over stretches. So really, this is a lot like the Steelers playing themselves. We'll see what direction this goes.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting this week. And before we hop into the news and notes, if you want to participate in the program, and thank you everybody who's joined us live, Big Mel, Ollie, Howard, Species, Big George, everybody else on there, please hop in and give us a comment and hit us with a like and subscribe. If you want to join the program via podcast, go to your podcast, however you get it, do a search for the New Standard. And you can do the same by doing a search for the New Standard and finding us on YouTube, the New Standard, and Lance Williams and or Neil Coulong. What's up, Coach Corey? How are you, my friend? And I just want to, when we jump into the news and notes, let's first start with the title of the program before we jump into some other news and notes about the dual right tackle. You know, maybe we could get outstanding right tackle play if you actually had two right tackles play right tackle. But before we jump into that, the name of this week's show is "It Is a Pebble in My Shoe," and Mike Tomlin used that to describe how all of the stuff or chicanery that went on this week or the past few days with George Pickens and his Twitter account, that he doesn't care about that stuff. It's a pebble in his shoe as he prepares for the Green Bay Packers. And that's more of the type of stuff that guys like you and me talk about. What's your thoughts about the whole George Pickens social media saga and Tomlin just poo pooing it away with the quote, "It is a pebble in my shoe"?
First and foremost, I don't like pebbles in my shoe. When I first heard that, I thought he was saying that it was an irritation. It was annoying. The context that he used, and this is certainly how the overwhelming majority of people took it. So I'm in the wrong. That's fine. Was this is something that's there that he's not really paying a whole lot of attention to. That said, I don't blame him for saying that in the season, but regardless of what is said or what people's thought is on it, the fact that George Pickens goes out of his way to do things that are very commonly associated with um, a disgruntled nature, and then for him to try to come back and walk it back later as if everyone else is taking it way too far, and even saying this isn't even about football. No, sorry, no, that doesn't work. He's pissed off. He's clearly showing that he's pissed off. Part of that is the fleas that come with the dog. You want a high level competitor, you want intensity. It doesn't just turn off and on, you kind of have that. And that's sort of, big machines have big exhaust. I'm okay with it to a point, but let's look at overall here what's going on. And I'm still burned over the fact that his laziness and his lack of effort cost him a touchdown, cost the team a touchdown. For him to be upset after that and instead point to allegedly the amount of targets that he got in a game, I'm not having that. That's just me. If you're not getting the ball and you are open, you are able to make plays, and you're not being given those opportunities, I don't blame you for being upset. If you get those opportunities and you're the one who costs the moment the chance to see your greatness, that's on you. Okay, no one else to complain about. Didn't say anything about that. There was nothing about, you know what, I can make that play in my sleep. I didn't this time. I'm upset with myself. I'm going to get back to it this week. Watch out, Green Bay. None of that. Not that I'm saying that it needs to happen, but for him to post what he did, it's childish. It's immature. Get pissed off on the field. I honestly have no problem with that. I'm the only person that was not upset with Antonio Brown for punching a Gatorade cooler, as if that matters at all. George Pickens to act like a sullen child if he's not getting the ball. I'm not having that so much. When you have the opportunity to make the play, make the play.
That's my point. I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't give my daughter a big congratulations. My daughter, my youngest daughter, Olivia, who got her driver's license this week. So she is very happy. She passed her driver's test. I am very happy as well. So you might get a more energetic and fired up and charged up podcast and show host because I'm not taking her all over the world. But anyway, with the pissed off stuff, and like I try to tell her, she was kind of pissed off after she had her practice today. And my thing is, I don't mind you being pissed off. It's how you focus it and how you use it. Are you going to use it as fuel, or are you going to use it as a hindrance? If he uses this as fuel to go out and show Mike Tomlin and the staff, I'm that dude, throw it to me 15 times by dragging both feet in the end zone 3 or 4 times, fine. That's a great way to use that emotion and being pissed off if it's used positively to increase your play, to make you play better. But if it's used to sulk, it's not useful. And it's like what Mike Tomlin said, it is Pebble in my shoe. But let's transition to the dual starters at right tackle. And Mike Tomlin came out this week and said that both Broderick Jones and Chooks Okorafor are the starting right tackles. And is that, is the saying the same when you talk about, like, when we used to say back in the day, if you have two starting quarterbacks, you really don't have any, or you don't have none?
You have
Is
none.
that the same with right tackle? Did I get that cliche correct?
If you have two quarterbacks, you have none is kind of how it goes. Or if you have
Yeah.
no quarterbacks, you have none, like the Steelers. As far as the right tackles go, it's honestly, I think it's more pointing out that Broderick Jones played to the level that they hoped that he would play, considering the situation that they're in. I don't. Has it been reported what exactly Chooks did or said? Apparently, it was something that
No.
I don't know what that means. Um, you give kids timeouts for saying stuff. I didn't know that happened a whole lot with professional athletes. Certainly not when they say something, when they apparently said something that wasn't public that led to his benching. He wasn't benched and then said something. So, however it is that's going on with that, I'm not sure. What I know is game to game, Chuks Okorafor has not been impressive in a while. Jones is younger. While Chuks is a good athlete, I don't want to take that away from him. Jones is one of the best athletes among tackles in the NFL. He has a much higher ceiling. Chuks makes 80 times as much. So I can see why they might kind of want to frame this right now as, we're not just going to give you the job now. There was a price that you had to pay. Somebody else came in. At the end of the day, though, it wouldn't surprise me if it was Chuks who ended up starting, largely because of the money issue. They invested that much money into him. They started him there. I don't know if they're just going to take his job away. It's just funny to me how this is all shifted, because we went absolutely ballistic over the idea that Dan Moore, coming off of injury, would stay at left tackle after Broderick Jones made his first start. Chooks, they don't care. He says something, get his ass out of the lineup. Jones is our guy over on the right side. I don't think Jones was as on review. I don't think he was as impressive on the right side as he was on the left. New position, though. You can't really fault him a whole lot, but he played fairly well. At this point, yes, I think if Chooks had center capability, they would investigate that. That's much more of a problem right now than the tackle is. To put both of them as the co-starters or whatever that bullshit is, Tomlin's done it before. It seems more like a motivational tool than anything. Where we sit now, and again, we're as always discussing this Wednesday before their first game practice of the week. I'm not sure what they're going to do. My gut would really tell you it's going to be Chooks, but I would expect to see Broderick Jones brought in a bit as in a jumbo package type of role, playing that extra tight end position, just for the sake of keeping him on the field. And obviously now he's going to be the swing tackle if either Chooks or Dan Moore were to go down. You'll see Jones fill in that spot, and I don't think that's the worst thing in the world.
This is going to be interesting in this game, and we'll get to it when we get to the breakdown of the Packer game very shortly. I always go back to the 3 Ps. If you're not familiar with the show and you're checking out the new standard, it is a pebble in my shoe with myself, Lance Williams, and Neil Coulomb. Please like and subscribe to the program. Hit that notification bell as well so you can get notifications of when we go live. It always comes down to me, and I use the 3 Ps: performance, pay, and pedigree, to try to frame decisions that a football team makes. And in this case, performance, pay, and pedigree is a little complicated because, as you so well said, Chooks has the pay issue. He has the pay part of the P, not the issue, the pay part, where they're paying a significant amount of compensation to play that position, which in turn says he's our right tackle. Broderick Jones, however, now when Mike Tomlin came out also this week and said Dan Moore is much more equipped or well equipped to play the left tackle position, seems like it's cementing Dan Moore to be possibly that left tackle of the future.
Could be.
You couple that with performance and pedigree, which are clearly on the side of Broderick Jones, and this is the time where you have one that I think is a little more convoluted. And I think it's going to all come down to performance, because the pay, pedigree, performance stuff is really kind of even, I think, in this circumstance. Highly pedigreed player in Broderick Jones, your first round draft pick, versus your sort of entrenched guy.
The big thing here is the pay part of it, because what you're looking at is you'll get through the year with 3 tackles, however they're going to divide that up. But there is absolutely no way Chooks is coming back next year. Not the way that he has played for the salary that he's making. There's absolutely no way. Then you have Dan Moore in a contract year, along with Jones, who now they apparently feel comfortable enough to play him at right tackle. The big question comes down to, if it's those two, Chooks is out for next year. If it's those two, What we're seeing right now kind of suggests that it's probably going to be Broderick Jones at right tackle. And I know that people freak out over that as if left tackle is still a more valuable and better position than right tackle is. It's not the way it works anymore. You know, I did we get into this last week? I forget, but if any fan base should understand that and know that, it's the Steelers, because what side of the formation is TJ Watt lined up on? He's going after the right tackle. It's not rare for that to happen anymore. There are a lot of different reasons why you would put one edge rusher on one side and another on another side, or mix them up, or what. A lot of different reasons why that might happen. The skill and the ability of your tackles is not, there's not like a wide gap between your left tackle and your right tackle. Or if there is, you're probably not very good. The reality is you need to be good on both sides. The blind side thing and all of that, this isn't Lawrence Taylor's game anymore. He started that largely because he's the guy who invented the strip sack. That didn't happen as much back then. Now it happens all the time. We see they don't need to come from the left or the right side to force a fumble. They're trying to do it. It doesn't make a difference. You really want to put your two best tackles together and then figure out who's more comfortable with what. What are we going to do and when? What does our offense and our philosophy depend on as far as side of a play? It's not just simply he has to protect the blind side anymore. It really that isn't relevant. Can you play Broderick Jones at right tackle? Can you play Broderick Jones or Dan Moore at right tackle? We'll find that out next year. But my point in bringing it up is these seeds are being planted right now, and that's kind of the thing to look at. And if it comes down to the Jones is going to start playing on the right side, it's probably because Chooks is done, and they know that, and they're kind of getting on with their future. How big is the gap between Chooks and Broderick Jones today for a 5-3 team that's playing a very beatable opponent this weekend? That's the question of the day, as far as what do they need to do to win this football game. My guess would probably be Chooks, but wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't, and if that changes at some point down the line here.
I'm going to guess, and I thought you broke that down really good. Thank you, Corey Hatcher. Big up, Coach Corey. Also thought you did a great job with that, Neil, and breaking it down. Also, I think just to add really quickly to that, um, outside pass rushers, edge rushers are so athletic and so good. It doesn't matter unless you have a
They're
freak,
coming from somewhere.
unless you have a freak athletic tackle. Edge rushers are going to be way better athletes than any tackle you can put on the field anyway. I mean, these guys are at a deficit athletically.
That's why Broderick Jones gets drafted 14 overall. A guy that's barely played football, but he has such an incredible athletic makeup. You have to get him because you have to go up against TJ Watt and Nick Bosa and the high level pass rushers that exist in the NFL. These absolute athletic freaks. If you get a left tackle that's the same way but weighs 60 more pounds, that's the guy you need in there, whether that's the right or the left side. Myles Garrett lines up anywhere now with Jim Schwartz. Doesn't make a difference who you have at right or left. He's probably going to be better than him. So you need to balance out your line as much as you can.
And he does crossover dribbles, Myles Garrett, in front
Oh,
of centers. And that's
so
a great
annoying.
way. This discussion about the right tackles is a great way to transition into this breakdown of the Green Bay Packers. And I think one of the big matchups that stands out in this game will be whoever is the right tackle against Rashawn Gary in the game. Or Rashawn Gary, excuse me, outstanding pass rusher, been a freak of
Excellent.
nature throughout his entire career, high school,
Big contract guy.
college, big contract guy. In that matchup, and we're talking about the offense, the Steelers' offense against the Packers' defense, and just to whittle this down and reduce it down uh, to a very critical and key matchup, I think that matchup is very critical. And I think that's one of the most critical ones on the offensive side of the football, because when you're talking about Gary, he has the ability to wreck a game. He can wreck your entire game. And how do you think, or who do you think, which player will fare better against him from a pass protection standpoint? Because I think that's going to loom largely into who did they decide to start and or their offensive approach, whether they're going to give that right tackle extra chip help, slide protection, whatever they're going to do from a game plan perspective. What do you think about that matchup?
I think Gary's a game wrecker. He's a great player. I'm trying to see it. He just signed a contract extension. And amid a bad season, it might suggest a couple of 4 years, $107 million last week that he signed. That puts him in the top echelon of edge rushers in the NFL, or 4 year, $96 million I'm seeing elsewhere. He's getting paid a lot of money, and he's pretty good. So he's not the type of guy that's moving all over the formation. He's primarily, I believe, on the defensive left side. With that, my sense is the Steelers would want to sign or would want to play Chooks and lean on the experience that he has. Gary is big, he's strong, he's fast. It's not as if the Steelers haven't faced a player like him, but that doesn't change the fact that he's a game wrecker. Too much pressure, especially against a quarterback that's not throwing well when he's not pressured, leads to bad things offensively. And I think Green Bay is going to need to get quite a lot from him. And with that, the Steelers are going to have to provide not just protection, but attention to him wherever he is, and chip as much as humanly possible. And there we get into the chess match of what they're going to do, where they'd move him, how they'd line him up. But at the end of the day, most often it's single blocking. You know, who can handle him right off the snap? Is that person able to handle a counter move? Are they athletic enough to keep with him if he's going to dip underneath and get around the edge? It only takes a guy like that 2-3 plays to make a massive impact on a game. And it could come down to that. These are two teams that do not play offense particularly well. They're decent defensive teams, and they can make plays on the ball. And Gary is the big one for the Packers. It has to be a team effort. The Steelers have not played well, in my estimation, anyway, out of 12 personnel. Their tight end unit is decimated without Freiermuth in there. So top to bottom, it's a tough matchup. You know, he's a big time player. He earned the money that he's getting, and he can wreck you real quickly. They're going to need to be on the ball as far as their offensive game plan goes, and make sure the running backs are ready to chip. The tight ends can get some help in there and do the best they can to kind of try to contain him. Teams have done that lately too. He hasn't really made explosive plays as of late, but he's always one step away.
Absolutely. And when you're talking about him, you're talking about his pedigree and his pay, particularly, he's up there as I'm looking at the edge rusher contracts. You got Nick Bosa in terms of average per year as number one. Then you got TJ Watt, Joey Bosa, Myles Garrett, Montez Sweat, who just signed an extension this week, and Rashawn Gary. So he is a highly pedigreed player, super highly pedigreed player who's getting a bunch of money, who's had high level performance. And that's a key matchup for this game. I think another matchup on this game on the offensive side of football, it's the guy that we talked about earlier in this program about the title of the show. It's a pebble in my shoe. I think there's an interesting matchup out there with Jair Alexander against George Pickens. How do you like that matchup? How do you think that shakes out?
You had posted this question before. I meant to respond, but you don't trail anybody in the Steelers the Steelers offense. What's the point? They're not. Any one player can wreck you on offense. You know, if you don't cover a guy and they get him the ball, you're gonna give up a big play. Nobody, in my estimation, within the Steelers offense, nobody is worth committing one player, which is to say the offense is going to dictate what we do. Nobody is worth that in response to what the Steelers have. I'm not saying that George Pickens is not a talented player. Deontay Johnson is one of the best separation creating receivers in the game. If you're the Packers, you're going to let the Steelers put their guys where they want. You want your guys where they are. You don't want to have to follow somebody around unless they're, a team is going to lean extremely heavily on one player, and that player is a difference maker 17 to 20 yards down the field. Even then, you're providing help on that player. Who do you need to double team in the Steelers offense right now? It's not a question of the receiver as much as it is just in general. Their operation isn't good. It's not fluid. They're not dominant play to play. They're not on the same page very often. Jair Alexander can lock up either one of them. He's a damn good cornerback. There are very few things that he does wrong consistently, and he can make plays on the ball. Whoever it is that they're going to cover, and I'm not even saying that they have to play man. this isn't a team that you have to play man against unless you really want to get after the blitz, and maybe they want to do that. I wouldn't mind doing that if I was a defensive coordinator going against the Steelers offense. But overall, you're not going to be worried that much about a Steelers receiver to make them dictate your coverage. So wherever Jair is, odds are pretty good. If you throw a target to that side, it's not going to end well for you. And you're going to try to probably work away from them as much as you can. If you're the Packers, that's a win. That means we've taken away this part of the field. They don't even want to go at our guy here. I don't care about the receivers. It doesn't make a difference to me. If I own that real estate, I'm fine with it. They're not going to come over here because our guy is that good. Whoever they want to put over here is fine. We'll deal with the other one on the other side. And I'd imagine that's what Green Bay would want to do. But I don't know. I'm not fully versed in their defense or what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I always like to bring it up in terms of matchups because matchups are an easy way to frame it, although it doesn't typically shake out that way where it's that easy. But let's switch sides of the ball. I think there's an interesting matchup here. I think basically it's, I think when I'm watching the last two games with Green Bay, Love is a rookie quarterback, basically a rookie quarterback, a young guy, young starter. Kind of in the same lens as Kenny Pickens, in my estimation. Inconsistent. The offense is kind of sputtering, but he has a very good running back in his offense as opposed to the Steelers and Aaron Jones. I think this game comes down to how the Steelers will effectively, of course, rush the passer with TJ and Highsmith. But how do the Steelers match up in terms of them going up against this Green Bay run game and Aaron Jones? Is this an opponent you think that they can cut the water off in terms of the running game?
I don't have a great deal of faith the Steelers can consistently stop most running games, especially if a team is committed to doing it. I wouldn't, if I was running Green Bay's offense, I would like the matchup that I have, but I would probably look to do what teams have done the last couple games, which is stay away from TJ Watt, control the ball, and make good decisions with the football when you're throwing it. I think they can
Patrick
stay.
Peterson.
I think they can stay away from TJ Watt. I think that they can control possession. I don't think Green Bay is good enough to not make mistakes with the football, and that's been part of the biggest problem that they've had. Interestingly enough, you guys might remember Joe Barry, their defensive coordinator, the guy with the Browns last year. The Steelers have had ups and downs against him, but offensively, I would think this matchup would favor Green Bay a little bit more, just because they do the kinds of things that the Steelers don't do well consistently. You hope Cam Hayward needed a game to get right. Didn't look particularly good against Tennessee. They got a little bit more time off. Maybe he's going to be a little bit more in shape, more rested. That's not a knock on him. It's just, you need some time to kind of get back into football shape. You hope that he can make a difference in this game because they desperately need him. They're not getting great play from their defensive line. And perhaps more than anything, we didn't mention this before, Cole Holcomb, understandably, if you happen to be a twisted individual and went back and watched the replay of that, which sadly I did and haven't been able to eat since. Cole Holcomb is out for the season, as expected. The Steelers did not have a good amount of depth last year heading into this year.
Does Neil take those reps in dime?
In dime, I don't know. I'm not sure. Do they need dime against Green Bay all that much? They're going to want to run the ball. I mean, that's kind of the point here. Mark Robinson is probably the guy that's going to get on the field a bit more than they have, but they've got newer players who have not had that role. Holcomb was just coming into that role. I don't think he started off particularly well. He was playing pretty well when he went down. That's going to be a big hole. Again, you're Green Bay. You have a shaky quarterback at best. Don't tell me anything about Jordan Love. I know where he was drafted. I know that the potential and all that. He's not very good. Nothing we have seen to this point suggests he's good. He isn't. You probably want to run the ball if you're Green Bay. So I would imagine they'd like that matchup, and I really think that's where it's going to be, where this game is going to be decided. How well, how effectively, and for how long can Green Bay establish the run, control the tempo of the game? Everything we see right now, this is going to be a low-scoring game. And I say that every week, largely because the Steelers' offense is bad and their defense prevents points. So Green Bay is very similar to that. And with it, I think Green Bay is really going to need to establish the run. and try to use multiple backs as much as they can. Get the ball out on the edge, where the Steelers cornerbacks aren't going to be the best tacklers you've ever seen, and try to change the line of scrimmage on each running play, and grind out as much as they can, try to play field position.
Before we jump into predictions, let's jump into one last matchup that might transpire in this particular game, and that's a matchup between Joey Porter Jr. and North Dakota State Bison's own Christian Watson. If that matchup transpires, how do you like that matchup in the game? I think that'd be very interesting. Very explosive wide receiver against a very cocky uh, cornerback who I think would relish that matchup.
I'm digging now. Watson was hurt last week. I'm not 100% sure whether he's going to play or not. Hypothetically, though, if it's Watson or X, whoever it is they're going to put out there, Porter is a guy to watch in this game. Coming off a flag fest where he was probably a little bit too hyped up going against the draft guy that went to his school. You understand why he might have been a little bit more aggressive than he needed to be or should have been. Keep in mind too that the cagey veteran Patrick Peterson got flagged a bunch of times as well. So the message was clear within the secondary. We want you to get physical underneath. We want to cut the stuff off underneath, and they've been ripped on that consistently. People talk about the Steelers not throwing to the middle of the field as if they're all machines and you just need to throw to the open spot, which is obviously open because I say it is. Jamming receivers at the line of scrimmage, getting on top of them, being inside their pocket, playing on the edge like that is what takes away those middle routes. The Steelers receivers haven't been able to break that particularly well, and the Steelers defenders had some success doing it. I think that's where Porter is probably at his best. He's hard to get around. He's very aggressive. He's physical. He's got long ass arms to cut off that inside hip window. Hitting a pass over the middle in front of his own coverage on the other side is pretty hard to do. So Porter is critically important in the short stuff. People haven't really challenged him deep. They've gone flag routes on him. They've gone sideline routes on him, and he's availed himself pretty well. Middle of the field, the inside stuff, slants, skinny posts, those kinds of things are where you can get him into trouble, which is what we saw last week, which is what Tennessee kind of focused on. I would expect Green Bay to want to do that again. If Porter is out there, if they're showing man, get those inside slants going, get the skinny post going, make him be the physical player that he is, and see how aggressively the officials are going to call the game, see how close he's going to be in wake of all the penalties that he got. In my mind, that's a key essential to the Steelers defense when Green Bay has to throw the ball. Can they get those shorter inside routes going on a guy like Porter who might be a little iffy hands-wise? And the same thing with Peterson. My opinion, Peterson has not played well in the slot ever since they made the moves that they did over on that side of the field. I don't know how consistently good at that he's going to be. So I'd attack him short. I probably wouldn't throw the ball deep without a pretty compelling reason to do so if I'm Green Bay.
Let's jump into predictions before I get into my last little rant before we end the program. And Wes has got the Steelers losing 31-13 at you bugging, Wes. You bugging, Wes. I don't think Green Bay scores 31 points unless the Steelers turn it over about 4 times. You could probably you could probably drive Green Bay to the red zone, have them run every play in the red zone, and they probably wouldn't score 31. What's your prediction for this game, Big Neil?
It's tough. This one, I think it's a very equal matchup. I like to think there's value to a team playing a third consecutive home game. The familiarity, the comfort of that, the fact that your opponent doesn't have it. This is just kind of it feels like, and I don't have the science in front of me to bear it out, but those NFC games at home, mid-season, this is a Tomlin specialty. If it's not a primetime game, which he usually wins at home, pretty solid bet across the NFL. These types of games are ones that he pulls out. and they're usually ones that have a couple big plays in the second half. I think the Steelers take this. I'm not going to go as far as to make the stupid prediction that I did last week of what 20. Not on this. I the day of the game, I woke up thinking this is going to be a big outpouring for the Steelers offense. I think this week, let's go 23-16 Steelers.
It's interesting that you picked 16 because I'm going to go 24-16 Steelers. They actually scored three
That's 3
touchdowns
touchdowns, Lance.
and
They're not
kick a
allowed to
field
score 3
goal.
touchdowns.
And the reason why I
And
say
only
that,
one field goal.
the reason why I say that, I think they're going to turn over Jordan Love in the game.
If they can
Manga
get him
Healer
behind the
Mike.
sticks, he's going to have to throw. That's not
Manga
a good
Healer
thing for them.
Mike. What's up, Manga Healer Mike? Welcome to the program. Please like and subscribe. I personally was a fan of Icy Light, not Iron City. I always thought Iron City was not a solid brew, but the logo is fantastic. Manga Healer Mike, and Manga Healer Mike has the Steelers 31-10. I think Mel has the Steelers 14-10. Corey has the Steelers 17-10. I think we all have the Steelers winning this game. Before we end the program, let me jump into a quick rant about the term sustainability. A lot of times on this particular program, Neil and myself, we talk about sustainability and offense, about being sustainable. Have you developed a sustainable way to win games? You know what? As I was watching the New England Patriots, why I'm watching the Patriots is because I'm just trying to familiarize myself with the Patriots as the Steelers come up and meet them later in the season. And Neil has said it multiple times, if the worst thing is that the Steelers just figure out a way, that their best quality is figuring out how to win. Like they don't do anything particularly well except win enough games, just win games in ugly fashion, right? And so to the statement of it's a pebble in my shoe, sustainability is not what they're trying to win football games. If sustainability comes with that, great. But the goal is every week to win football games. And I don't care if they win 3-2, 7-6. The goal is to win football games every week. Now, if you have the luxury of taking a 64,000 foot perspective like we do, sustainability then becomes important. But week to week, man, these guys don't care about that. They care about the Packers and beating the Packers, however it looks. And that's why they don't apologize for wins. And they don't care. Style points don't matter to them because wins are hard to get, period. So this whole sustainability thing is just a perspective that I have the luxury of taking. And that's why teams they sound the way that they sound. It's about this week. It's about the Packers. It's about preparing to do whatever it takes to beat the Packers. And if that means you kick 10 field goals to win the game, you kick 10 field goals. We'll work on trying to get better the next week and work on that team. But sustainability, that's just something that's very nice for people like me and Neil to talk about.
I hear what you're saying, but here's the biggest issue.
Yes. Yeah, I know where you're going.
Anti-sustainable people, which if I chose a side, I'd be in that group. The anti-sustainable people haven't yet had the opportunity to say, I told you so, because it just never works out that way. They keep winning games in the most ridiculous way possible. I mean, you look at where they are. They're 5-3. You've got Green Bay, Cleveland, Cincinnati. In all honesty, if they're winning 1 of 3, which is what I'm going to pick them to do, they win 1 of 3, it's going to be the Packers. They're going to struggle badly against the Browns. They're not going to beat the Bengals. But then you've got Cardinals, Patriots, Colts right after that. They're going to be favored in all 3 of those games. In fact, if they lose any of those, it's going to be a pretty significant disappointment. Then you've got the Bengals at home. That's my opinion, not a winnable game. Seattle on the road, you have to travel quite a ways. I'm not sure what Seattle is or how good they are. And you're closing the year at Baltimore, which may or may not be a game that matters at all. Their schedule is so hot and cold that if they just do what they're doing on paper, they should win 10 games. That doesn't make any sense at all for the team that we're seeing. Why does it keep happening this way? It's not sustainable, but it is because it has been. Do they get boat raced in the first round of the playoffs again? Probably. But at this point, I don't know what else you're playing for, if not to at least qualify for the playoffs and see what happens from there. They're not an upper echelon team, but it just seems like there are fewer good teams in the NFL than there have been in the last 15 years, and a lot of mid-level teams that the Steelers can beat game to game.
Yeah, I mean that's what they are, and that is sustainable. and
that's what I'm saying. It's like
yeah,
we have to define what sustainable is,
yeah,
because nothing about this fits current definitions. It's just, this is the weirdest phenomenon in sports, in my opinion. Ever since Ben's elbow snapped in 2019, ever since that happened, this has been a below average to bad offensive team. No hope. Nothing has improved. They've been bad. Defensively, they've put a lot of money in. They've gotten a lot of big plays from it. Everything we know about the NFL suggests this team should fall apart at some point, but it doesn't. Why?
Yes.
Because it's sustaining itself somehow.
Yes.
We can't argue that it isn't. And I'm king. This isn't sustainable. Believe me, if you were goodly enough to have listened to the show beyond this year in the past, I will have said the exact same thing. The other shoe is going to fall at some point. It hasn't, and it's long past due. I don't know why it hasn't, but you look at their schedule, they should finish with 9 or 10 wins.
Yes, I mean,
and they probably will. Don't tell me they can't beat New England at home in primetime. Don't tell me that, okay? The Colts are a dumpster fire. The Cardinals are a dumpster fire. They don't need to win another division game. Beat the Packers, Cardinals, Patriots, Colts. That's 4 right there. That's 9 wins. You pick up another one in there, they're at 10. That's a wild card for sure. 9 might be. Probably would be, to be honest.
Yeah, and the way Deshaun Watson is playing, don't rule them out with beating the Browns. And like Wes said before we get out of here,
we'll score negative points.
Sustainable equals consistently being disappointed and frustrated at the same time while watching the Steelers.
But
Corey, the standard is now mediocrity. But let me just end with this by saying, as I talk to my brother every week, he would kill himself, and he's a Patriot fan, if the Patriots could figure out some way how to win ugly. He would kill himself
that's
every
kind of
week.
The point, isn't it? I mean,
that's the
we
point.
Act like this is a negative thing. Maybe this is just what they do. They drag their opponent down into the mud with them. This is how this country was set free from the English. They decided they're going to take the war to the mud. They're not just going to stand in line and let people fire at them all the time. They found a way that frustrated the hell out of their opponents, and they couldn't match it. The Steelers do that every single week. It's kind of in line with making the other team left-handed. I know how the high-end film buffs love that phrase. The Steelers just make every other team less than what they should be. How they do that, it's just snap to snap. It's they're bringing them down to their level, and the Steelers are plenty comfortable fighting in the mud. They'll beat you down there, and they do it more often than they don't. That's a fact.
Yep, and with that, sorry for the length of the show today. We try to keep it around 30 minutes, but I wanted to rant and just get loose and talk about the sustainability, because it's really been on my mind this week. But hey, it is what it is. Hope you guys enjoyed the program. And let me jump into one last thing. 23-17, great prediction by George. We all got the Steelers winning in this matchup, which means it'll be a dogfight.
Yeah,
it'll be offensively terrible.
Packers defense is not a joke.
Yeah. So it's going to be very interesting game. So buckle up as the DBs do. Buckle up, put on your seatbelt, and get ready for the ride. And with that, we're going to conclude the program. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Go Steelers.